Hi everyone. I'm here today talking to Josh Silver about his debut YA novel, Happy Head. And I've got to say, I'm kind of feeling a bit fangirl here because I have to say, Josh, I loved it.
Oh, good.
Absolutely loved it. One problem did mean I didn't get a lot of sleep that night because I couldn't put the flipping thing down. But there you go.
Oh,
So, welcome. And I'm really looking forward to telling everybody about the book. So, we normally start off with a little bit of a reading. Are you okay with that, Josh?
yes, I would love to do that. I'm going to read just a bit of the first chapter, if that's all right, Bev.
Yes, that's perfect.
So, just for a little bit of context, a young 17-year-old boy called Sebastian has received a letter in the post telling him he has to go to a new facility that's been designed to help make people happy, and 117-year-olds have been asked to go. He is one of them. So, should I just begin?
Yeah, be lovely.
Okay, chapter 1, Bowie Sky. I think it's down there, Mum says. We've already been down there, Dad says, a bit shirty now. No, it's a different road, look. They all look the same. No, that one's narrower than the others. Well, what does the sat-nav say? It's not working. It thinks we're in the middle of a field. We kind of are in the middle of a field, Lily chips in. It's unfortunate that I'm spending my 17th birthday with my face pressed against the car window for 8 hours as my parents insist to talk without coming up for air, but they wanted to wave me off. I said they could have done that from the front porch, but they didn't think that that would have been meaningful. I think it would have been meaningful, the meaning being that I could have got the train and avoided this. I could have seen Shelley last night and said goodbye and not got up at 4:30 to the sound of Dad waving a box of chocolate Cheerios in my face, claiming they were a fun treat before I left. Going to Happy Head will do me a world of good, Mum is now saying. I should be thankful that I was selected. Grateful. It's a blessing. She loves that word. Truly, she says as she catches my eye in the rearview mirror. You've always had a bit of a sensitive nature, haven't you? I think she might actually want an answer. Lily snorts. And we love that about you, Seb. We do. You've always felt things very deeply. Not that it's a bad thing. It's part of who you are. What makes you special? I want to open the door and jump into the bushes flying past us. I just worry that sometimes you might not be able to cope. Life isn't easy. For a while now, there has been a general feeling among my parents and my teachers that something had to come along to really shake up things for me if I was to equip myself for the next phase of life. So when the letter came, they were all very excited. Happy Head would be the answer. It had to be. They all agreed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry if
Okay,
that was a little long.
not a problem. So this is your debut novel.
It is, yeah.
And talk about start on a high. So, but what inspired you to write the novel?
Oh, okay. that's a. I'll try and give you the short version of that.
That's fine.
So I used to be an actor actually before I changed careers to become a mental health nurse, and I think part of my nature as a young person, all my life really, was to just sort of I just always had this need in me to try and impress other people, and I felt like that was the answer to everything, to try and succeed and do well. And I had that notion very much synonymous with the idea of happiness. You know, if I was to succeed and make other people be proud of me or impressed with me or give them what they wanted to see from me, that would make me happy. Over a long period of time, I found out that that wasn't true for me in any way. And so I went to drama school when I was 17, which was interesting, to say the least. I sort of struggled with it, actually. I was really not able to be myself amongst it all. And I really was just doing everything I can to please like me. And, this constant thing that is just, I just was stuck in that place for a long time. And then I acted for about 7 years. And then I just one day realized like this isn't making me happy. And I thought that the idea of leaving the acting industry would be seen as failure. In fact, it sort of is actually. It's sort of prescribed to you it's not, that's what's happened. You couldn't do it. You've given up. But actually leaving the acting industry was the best thing I ever did. And I started a nursing degree, a mental health nursing degree. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think part of the reason being that when I was an actor, I was constantly stuck in my own head thinking about myself a lot. And when you're a nurse, you have no time to do that. You're always having to look outwards. And for me, that's a really useful thing. My brain is quite a chaotic and I don't know, it's not the best place for me to be in all the time. And so nursing helped with that. And I loved it, but I did miss being creative. So I just started writing this book. I had a conversation with a patient on a ward about the nature of how sort of the system works. And, we sort of got into this conversation about how, some of these patients are there against their will, and it's not easy for them. It's really difficult. And, sometimes they have to do things that they don't want to. And we explored that idea, and he said to me, it started to sound like a dystopian book. And then he said, you should write it. And I was like, okay. And I did. So that's kind of where it came from. And yeah, I wrote it over lockdown. I was working on the wards at the time, and I was doing my degree, and I was writing the book. And so lots of people didn't see me for quite a long time while I was knuckling down. And then, yeah, here we are.
That's interesting that you say that you were writing it during lockdown, because what struck me very much when reading the first chapters is that we are very much in an epidemic of poor mental health in young people.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came during lockdown, didn't it? I think we're not going to know the full costs of lockdown on mental health for a long time, but it has really damaged a lot of people's mental health, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a difficult time for everyone, wasn't it? And I've actually felt quite fortunate that I was able to leave my house and go out and be in a different environment and be at work. But, people really struggled during that time. And I think things were really upended. But, even before lockdown happened, I feel like there's been this shift in terms of how happiness is presented to us, the rise of social media, the rise of the internet. It's very much become this sort of thing that almost can be obtainable, that you can see it. You see a picture of someone on the beach, someone looking very muscly in the gym, so dancing to a song. Like, it's all very much prescribed to us in images. And I feel like the idea of it is almost, well, it's certainly that idea of it is certainly unachievable for me. To be all those things and to have all those things, and I think that there's a lot of expectation placed on young people to change, and it really winds me up, to say it politely, that society. I've worked in wards where we're often asking these young people to change. Ultimately, we're helping you to get better. But often I think society needs to change and say, we accept you exactly like this. Do not worry. And I wonder how many admissions we would see if that was fully true and realized in our society. So, yeah, sorry, I got a bit carried away there. But it's difficult because, when I was growing up, I was a young gay boy who struggled to accept that. Many of the systems I worked and lived in, school, church, that wasn't what was expected of me, and it certainly wasn't how I was going to make myself happy. So I constantly was wrestling with this idea of, like, do I do what everyone's saying they want from me, or do I stay true to who I am? And that's kind of the conflict that Seb has throughout the book, because he's desperate to impress people. He's a people pleaser, right? So he struggles with the idea of, that's going to give me happiness because they're all going to be so chuffed and pleased with me when I win. Yeah. Or there's this boy that he meets called Phineas Blake, who is more along he's called resistant and he's called difficult, but actually what he's really doing is staying true to who he is amongst a system that is telling him to be something else. And that idea is alien to Seb, but there's something about it that he can't, shake off. Yeah.
I have to say, Finn is my favourite character.
Is he? That's nice to hear.
Absolutely. Absolutely loved Finn as a character. I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, I'm glad.
Now, you're either going to make me very unhappy now or make me happy. This is just the first book, isn't it, Josh? You're not going to leave it there.
It's done. No, I'm joking. It's a series, yeah.
Excellent.
So I literally just finished book 2. So I'm really excited for that to be out in the world. I've already received messages from people saying, "When's it coming?" It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, it's going to be a series. So
that's great, because you could not leave us hanging like that. Come on,
quite a cliffhanger.
You got to the last page and went,
"What?"
Which is always a good thing in a book, as long as you know there's a next one coming. Because if there wasn't, I'd have been very upset. And I understand you had some very exciting news recently involving Taron Egerton.
Yes, yeah. So it's really exciting that the book's going to be made a film. So yeah, I'm new to all this. I didn't really know how the publishing process works, but while you're sort of working on perfecting the book with your editor, that your agent will sort of put the screenwrites out to whoever that is. And yeah, we met with production companies, and then Taron was someone who was really interested, and we met with him, and he was just, so he just responded so well to I think to the elements of the story that I really want people to respond to. It's sort of set in this slightly Squid Game-esque world where they have to undertake challenges and assessments, and they get darker and more disturbing. But the thing that this company responded to was a sort of what I hope is a universal sort of thing of having to sort of look at yourself and see if you can be strong enough to do what you truly want, and yeah, so it's being developed for a film at the moment, which is really exciting.
I can see by your face that you're a little bit, oh my God, which I can totally understand.
It's weird because I wrote it. I think the way I write is quite visually. I sort of see it as, sorry, you might be able to hear my dog snoring, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. We can't, but we wouldn't mind if we could.
He's having a lovely time. Yeah, so I sort of write. I think I write I see it in front of me quite clearly as I write, and I think that must have appealed to these people who were interested in the screenwrites, because they said it's quite a visual book, and I love that people have said that it's what I want for it, and yeah, of course, I'd love to see this realized on the screen, but who knows? It's.
We will all be waiting, though, to see whether the actors that they put in the parts are who we would visualize in those parts. I think that's always the difficult thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I always found that when I was growing up, when I was reading books, I didn't like so much when the author described the character in loads of details, because especially when it came like halfway through the book, I'd be like, no, that's not how I see them.
Yeah.
So I do try and hold off a bit from that in my own book, but yeah, I know I have no idea. That's all for them to decide. But yeah, it'll
be interesting. It will be interesting. So, when you were growing up, I'm guessing you read YA books. Are there any particular authors that you were inspired by and that you enjoyed reading?
Well, when I grew up, I read Charles Dickens. We didn't. I'm going to say we weren't allowed to watch the TV, but it wasn't like that. My mum and dad asked us to read to sort of entertain ourselves, and
Yeah.
they gave us like George Orwell and Charles Dickens, which are two of my absolute favorite writers. And yeah, I just loved escaping into those worlds, and I couldn't believe that I could understand it and relate to it. A book that was set in Victorian England, and it was so funny, and I just used to laugh reading. And Great Expectations, was my favorite. But I don't want to sound all, I grew up reading Dickens, but like I just loved that escapism when I was growing up. Reading just did it for me. It just took me out of my own head. And, when I was a teenager, I really struggled to be in my own head. I really struggled with my mental health as a teenager. And that sort of ability to transport myself and be amongst a group of people that no one else had, they were sort of mine. I loved being able to do that. So I didn't actually read loads of YA, but I did read a lot. I also loved The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood. I think people study it at school, don't they?
They do,
Yeah.
which ruins it for some. Has to be said.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. But I just loved how Margaret Atwood just created, like, that immediately you were in this world that felt real. And I think that sort of world building it just blew my mind that you could just be there, So she's a massive inspiration of mine, and yeah. So I do like a bit of dystopia.
Absolutely fine. It's interesting what you say about Dickens being your gateway into reading and into different worlds. My own son was very similar. But his was Terry Pratchett.
Yeah,
For him, absolutely every single Terry Pratchett book that was ever written. He didn't read an awful lot else, but he was focused, and that was his way of relaxing, and as you say, getting out of his own head, and perhaps not taking himself quite so seriously, and escaping from that a little bit and going into books. So there is so much power there, isn't there, in reading to allow you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I loved about it as a teenager is it was so personal. So it almost felt like I didn't like the idea of other people reading the books I'd read, because I was like, no, get off their mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can totally empathise with that one. And I would think most of the people that will be watching this video can do as well, because we all tend to get a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Just as an aside, loved the video introduction to the book on TikTok, on One World's TikTok.
I didn't. Oh, am I introducing it?
You are. It's yourself. Okay. It's yourself talking about it on TikTok. I found it this morning, and I thought, oh, it's a really good video, actually, because you look quite relaxed and you just sitting there.
I'm never that. Honestly, that's never a default state of mind. I'll tell you that for free.
It's amazing, isn't it? The power that TikTok now has in the book world, especially with young people, because and I think it's sad sometimes in that a lot of us think of TikTok in a very negative way, but it's also been very positive in some ways as well. There were some very nice reviews on there as well from people that had early copies. So I'd have a look if I were you.
I don't know. I have an interesting relationship with social media. I didn't have it for years. Yeah. And when I became an author, it's a useful tool to connect with your audience. And I totally see that. But the way my brain works, I think it can become I have to be careful with it. It can sometimes become a bit dangerous for me, just sort of almost like searching for reasons to dislike myself. And I don't, so I'm fairly new to social media as well, but I'm really glad that it's reaching people. And I really do love the power of what Instagram and TikTok does there for books, and also for a community. You can reach out and find your community there. It's really powerful and special. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, what a way to meet like-minded people and not feel alone in what you're going through. I wish I'd had that growing up. So of course it has its uses, but I'm just careful with it myself.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. It has a lot of advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. I was reading something the other day about the latest beauty filter that's been all over TikTok, and it's very dangerous.
This is part of what we were saying earlier about this unachievable, unobtainable notion of happiness. Like, that's not
Yeah.
real. That does
No.
not exist. You cannot look like that. It's a filter, but it's given to us like it exists. And if you so none of us can ever meet that. But if we're trying to and we're falling short, we're never going to feel a
No.
sense of achievement. I guess that's what the filter's asking from us. And that idea terrifies me. Like, happiness is a commodity that can be gained, put in your back pocket. I've got it now. Look at me. Look how happy I am. Which, for me, my personal experience is that that's just not how happiness works. It almost feels to me like that word doesn't even have a clear definition anymore. It doesn't really seem to. It means a million things. You can put that word to anything, as a sort of way of drawing people into your product. Anyway.
Yeah, it has indeed become a commodity. I agree. But I also agree with what you said about social media being a great way to find your tribe.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm a lot older than you, but when I was at school, I was in an all-girls school, and I was perhaps the only rocker in a school where, there was lots of pop fans, and I was the only one going around listening to Saxon and Iron Maiden and things like that. And it was very lonely. It was very lonely. But now I would have been able to find my tribe online much easier. And I think that is a huge plus.
When I was growing up, we had MySpace. Do you remember MySpace?
Yes, I remember MySpace.
I remember staying up late, like going on, I don't know, my mum's computer and like seeing all these people. I was like, oh, is that two boys kissing? What is this? And like, they exist. They're out there. They're out there somewhere. And that just like was incredible for me to see that there were other people out there. Yeah, it's incredible for that, isn't it? Really powerful.
It is absolutely phenomenal for that, for being able to find friends. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid we have run out of time, Josh. I said to you at the beginning that, believe me, it will go quick. It always does.
Absolutely flew by, didn't it?
But it's been absolutely lovely talking to you. You've made me very happy. Just hurry up and get the second one published, because, it's going to be there in my brain. Going to be thinking about it.
It's coming. I promise it's coming.
But definitely congratulations on writing an absolutely brilliant book, and looking forward to many more.
I hope so, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh.
Take care.